Hey y'all, welcome back to my live broadcast. I'm Shanta Prince. I work with women coaches and consultants and experts, and I teach them how to build their brand online, how to create offers that sell, and then I teach them all the other things that go into building a successful online business. So today I want to talk about content because content is one of the main ways that you can sell your offers, build brand authority, and nurture your audience. And content can really drive your sales. And so I will tell you that one of the biggest things that I see people struggling with who want to build a successful online business, hey lady, is creating quality content. Now let me explain a little bit about what I mean when I talk about content. Hey, thank you. When I'm talking about content, I'm really talking about anything that you're posting around your brand, around promoting your business, even if you're just talking about your life, that's content too, right? So the thing is, what is very difficult, it seems very difficult for many people to understand, is that creating content builds your brand, and it what it does is it establishes a perception about you and your business. And it's based on what people are seeing from you on a consistent basis. And if you're not consistent, then that's giving a perception as well. And if you are consistent, people are gathering an opinion about you from what they're seeing from you consistently. Now, there is a difference between posting just regular content, and I talk about this with my clients. And I talk about how it's great to post inspirational things because people need that. We all need to be inspired and feel motivated at times. Sometimes, there are different kinds of motivation, right? You can have motivation that comes from your inner being, and sometimes you may need a little motivation that comes from outside, from an outside source. But it's great because we all need that sometimes. But when I talk to my clients about how to have a well-rounded presence online and how to post content that actually shows people what you can do. Yes, inspirational things make people feel amazing, and we need people to feel good so they can buy from us. So like when I go to the when I go to the stores, when I go into the stores to shop, I don't do it that often. If I need something specific, I do go into the stores, like if my kids need school clothes or if I'm looking for something. But most of the time I do a lot of shopping online, and I go into the stores every now and then. But if I go into a store and they're playing the right kind of music, I might stay a little longer and spend a little bit more money because why? The music is making me feel good. I feel happy, right? And so the inspiration does have a place and a purpose. However, posting inspirational content all the time is not enough for people to really get a feel for your brand, right? That's not the stuff that makes people want to work with you, and it makes them feel good, but it's not the stuff that helps them to take that next step, or to go to the next level with you. When you post content that shows who you are and what you can do, those are the things that really help you to build a powerful online presence and establish yourself as a trusted expert. And the difference is with the inspirational content is like, okay, this makes me feel good. Okay, but that right there, that helps me to see like who she really is. And there has to be a deeper level of what you're putting out there to really get people to want to work with you. And I think the concept that's hard to understand is that for you to really attract the kind of people who you want to work with, you have to post quality content on a regular basis. Now, I'm not saying you got to post 25,000 times a day. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is that for you to attract the kind of people who can afford to pay you, for you to attract the kind of client that you want to work with, you got to put the right kind of content out there, right? Because we're looking for a certain kind of content. Hey, Carmen, we're looking, when those of us who invest in ourselves, we're looking for a certain level of content, a certain kind of content, right? Because the content is how we decide if we want to buy. When you go into the store, you can look at the thing and you can analyze it, you can touch it, you can feel it. A lot of times, if I'm in the store and I see a dress from a distance, When I walk up on it and touch it, I'm like, oh, I don't like that fabric, right? It was cute, but when I walked up on it and I touched it, I decided not to buy it because I could see it in person, I could feel it, and I decided this dress is not going to be a good fit for me. Well, with us, those of us who sell online, our content is how people decide if they want to work with us or not. So when I see people struggling to get clients, or when they're struggling to get draw in the right people, a lot of times it goes back to the content that they're posting. If you want to attract high quality buyers, you got to put out high quality content. That's just the bottom line. The frustration comes in when you're drawing in people who they don't have the right mindset. They don't believe in investing in themselves. That could be really frustrating for your business because you're like, I know I'm quality. I know I'm where God has called me to be. And I know that when I do get clients, that I'm going to take good care of them and I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do. But the thing is that you have the wrong people in your audience when you're not putting out quality content. So the thing is, when you are sharing content on a regular basis, that's you nurturing your audience, meaning providing value to your audience. And then there's another part of growth where you actually go out and you work on your visibility, and then you draw people back to your audience. That's how you grow your audience. You go out, you get on other people's stages, you collaborate with other people, and guess what? When you collaborate with someone, or you're speaking on somebody's stage, or you're on somebody's podcast, people are going to see you and fall in love with you, and then they're going to say, well, let me go find Carmen's group, or let me go find Natasha's social media so I can connect with her. But you got to have sticking power when they come, right? I call it sticking power, because when you have good content, that makes people want to stay. That makes people hit the follow button. When I'm considering following somebody, I literally scroll through their page and I read quite a few of their posts, and then I'm like, this is good. Let me follow this. Let me follow this person. But if they don't have sticking power, I may look at a few things and then I may keep going. So what I want to do is I want to help you and help my clients to have that sticking power, so that when people are scrolling through your profile, they're like, oh, this is great. I want to connect with this person. So your content is how people are they're determining if you're the right person for them. And when people come to your profile, what do you want them to feel? How do you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel educated? Do you want them to feel informed? Do you want them to feel inspired? Those are the things that you want to think about. How do you want a person to feel when they come to your page? What's going to be the sticking power that you're going to use to keep them on your page? So one way to create high quality content is to tell stories. Y'all, like, I could not express this enough, that when you tell stories, people understand better. And I always use this. I was laughing with my clients a few weeks ago because I was talking about how I mentioned this concept on somebody's podcast, marketing like Jesus. And they went and turned it into a thing. They used the marketing like Jesus thing. And I just thought that was so funny. And I'm like, well, I don't own it. It's just something that I thought about when I'm like, there's a certain way when Jesus, when we look in the scriptures, and when Jesus, we see how Jesus walked this earth, there's a certain way that he went about getting his message out. And we saw him deliberately going into different places, right? We see him saying, I must go to Samaria. I must go here. I must go there. And so we see him doing things a certain way, and we see his popularity grow because he went out, he demonstrated his gifts, right? Which is what I encourage my clients to do. Demonstrate your gifts, show people what you can do. But one thing that he did is he told stories. The kingdom of heaven is like this. The kingdom of heaven is like that. Why? Because he wanted them to be able to conceptualize this kingdom that they had not experienced before. So he used things that they would understand to help them to conceptualize what the kingdom is like. So a story can go a long way with helping people to understand who you are and why you do things the way you do things. So if you're telling stories, people sometimes may not remember if you lay everything out, right? Because one of the kinds of content that I encourage my clients to post is how-to content, right? How to do this, how to do that. But that's not going to be all the content that they're posting. But if you're posting all the how-to content, they may not remember the 5 steps that you laid out. They may have to go back and like remember that. But stories stay in people's mind, and they will remember the story that you told. My clients a lot of times will send me a message and say, "I remember you told a story about this, and that happened to me." Right? So if you're telling stories through your content, whether you're posting on social media or whether you are talking about stories when you do your live videos, if you're talking about stories during your launches, your stories go a long way. So that's one way to create high quality content, is to tell stories. If you look at any of my posts, I tell a lot of stories. And sometimes, people, they'll message me, or somebody I saw in person. She said, one of the posts that you made the other day really inspired me, and I want to thank you for posting that, because I felt so inspired after reading that. So telling stories is one way to stay locked in your ideal client's mind. So, and here's the difference. So sometimes you may see me post a story, and sometimes you may see me post how to do blah blah blah, right? So if I say how to build a personal brand online, step 1, step 2, step 3, that's an example of how-to content. If I'm telling a story, I may say something along the lines of, when I first started my business, I really didn't know what the word branding meant. I just kept saying that I need to learn how to package myself. But I didn't really know that that was branding until I met someone who used my words and said, "I'm going to teach you how to package yourself." And when she said that, I felt connected to her, because she said it just the same way that I explained it. And I felt like she was reading my mind, right? So that's an example of telling a story. And so, but sometimes you can mix both. You can tell a story and then you can go into your how-to content. But the thing about telling stories is it makes you memorable. It makes you different, because guess what? People can try to copy what you're doing, but they can't copy your story, because then they will be lying. Right? So your stories set you apart and they really differentiate you from everybody else, right? I'm not the only person who teaches about branding. I always talk to you guys about, I have a friend who teaches about, actually I have a couple of friends who teach on branding and marketing, but we're very different and we have different stories. And because of that, hey Ursula, because of that, she's gonna draw in different people, and I'm gonna draw in different people based on my story and who I am. Right? It definitely hits different. So when you tell stories, it's like you're peeling back the curtain to allow people to see who you are and why you do things the way you do things. And people are drawn to that. When I first started selling my barbecue rub online, the way that we launched it is we told a story. And I told a story about how I went on this cooking competition on Food Network, and I had been having so much doubt about selling this rub that it started out as a recipe and I turned it into a retail product. So I told this story about how I went on this cooking competition and I had been doubting if this rub was good enough to sell. And I talked about how I was losing in the first 2 rounds on this competition. And then in the final round, I actually used my my rub on a piece of salmon that I cooked on the grill. And literally the rub is what won the competition for me. So I was losing the first 2 rounds. The third round, the judges were really impressed by the rub and the seasoning that I used on the rub. So if you saw the show, if you go back and watch the show, you'll see a moment where I get really emotional. And the reason why I was so emotional is because I had a moment with God, and I was just like, all this time I've been doubting how good this rub is and if it was good enough to sell. And these people are telling me how amazing this is. and they're going on, and I'm finally getting the critiques or the feedback that I have been fighting for the entire show. And now in the last round, I'm getting the best reviews that I've gotten, and I was the most exhausted. That last round was very tough because we have been filming all day, and by then I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I had not been eating because I was nervous. And so I told that story, and guess what? The rub started selling like crazy because of the story. Now, if I had just come out and said, "Hey, I got this rub, click the link to buy it," would not have sold the same way. People were buying into the story. Okay? So the stories that you tell, people buy, they buy into that. There's a story for everything. And you can use stories to make points. You can use stories to give examples. You can use stories that literally build your brand. So by now, anybody who follows me, they know that I was in the Navy. They know that I have multiple businesses. They know things about me because I tell them stories. And people feel like they know me. When I get messages from people that I don't know, they know me because they watch my videos or they look at my content. So they know me, and I'm just now meeting them because I'm like, oh, where did this person come from? They've been following my content. They've been reading my stories. Okay, so your stories can go a long way. Thank you, Natasha. Natasha is one of my my repeat customers. But thank you so much, Natasha. So that's one way. Telling stories can really build a powerful presence for you. Another way to create high quality content is to share your ideas in a way that is systematic, or you may say formulaic. And here's what I mean by that. When you are talking about something, or let's say you're talking about something that's near and dear to your heart. So you can lay out your ideas. And what I mean by systematic or formulaic is that you lay your ideas out in a way that people can follow you. When they're reading something, y'all, the other day, last night I did some training for some new property inspectors for my property preservation business. And I just felt like I was all over the place. I was like, this kind of order, and then you want to do this, and I was just really like kind of all over the place with that with the training. And then at the end, I was like, okay, I think I covered everything. And I kept asking, do you guys have any questions? But I was like all over the place, right? When you're like that, it's very difficult for somebody to follow you. But normally when I teach in a very systematic way. And normally I teach step by step, and I teach in a very detailed way. And I really focus on, well, actually, I don't really put a lot of effort into it. It's just something that comes naturally to me. But my teaching style is that I take things that are complex and I make them very simple to understand. So when you lay your content out, if you're talking about, the other day I made a post and I was talking about problems that people face. And so I laid out some of the problems that people are facing when they're trying to build an online business. And so I talked about how one problem is a visibility problem. And another problem is a sales problem. So I laid the content out in a way that people can really see, okay, I get it. She's got the main problems that she sees people facing. And guess what? A lot of people who are my ideal clients were probably like, oh, that's my issue right there, right? So I talked about the visibility problem, and then I explained what that is. And then I talked about the sales problem, and then I explained what that is. And then the third one that I talked about is the messaging problem, and then I explained what that was. So I laid the content out in a way that was systematic, so that people can get it, right? If you're posting things that are all over the place and nobody understands what you're saying, they're going to keep scrolling. But when you create something and people can follow that, then in their minds, that's like a mini transformation. Each time you post, your audience should experience like a mini transformation. And when that happens, is usually because whatever you posted connected with them. Like, okay, I got that. You guys, a lot of people are posting things that don't connect. And when it doesn't connect, you can collect. right? If your content is not connecting, people will not pay you because they don't understand. When we pull out our cards to invest, we want to understand what we're investing in. No one is out here throwing money away. When we pull out those cards to pay for something, we want to make sure we're sowing on good ground. And if people don't understand who you are or what you do, it makes it very difficult for somebody to want to pay you. So you want to make sure your content is connecting, and you want to be able to lay it out in a way that people can get it, right? Not just the way that you understand it. Because sometimes my clients and I talked about this on Tuesday, and we talked about how, you are the expert. You're the expert. And so some things that the way that you explain things may not be the way your ideal client is explaining something. You may be explaining it from an expert, from the level of your expertise. They're explaining it from the level of where they are. And that's why they want to work with you, because you're the expert. But if you're articulating things in a way that goes over their heads, they can't connect with that. They don't understand what that is. And so, for example, when my son was diagnosed with a condition called uveitis, and that means that his eyes, it's an autoimmune disorder, and that means that he has inflammation in his body that's coming out in his eyes. So his eyes were red, and we didn't know. We thought it was pink eye. And so after it didn't go away, and then it went away, and then it came back, and then it stayed for a long time. And I'm saying, well, pink eye, if this was pink eye, it should be gone right now. So when I took him to the pediatrician, she's like, that's not pink eye. She said, I'm gonna send you to this this pediatric optometrist. The optometrist, she put the light in his eye, and she looked in his eye, and she said, he's got uveitis. And so the next thing I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to figure out like what uveitis is. And she explained it. He has inflammation in his body, it's coming out through his eyes. Now, guess what? If I had seen some marketing that said, do you have a child with uveitis? Guess what? I would have scrolled right by that, because I don't even know what uveitis is. I would have scrolled right past that, right? But if the marketing says something like, do you have a child that has like chronic pink eye, or their eyes are chronically red or pink or irritated, that would have got me, because I'm like, yes, my kid has, his eyes are red. I would have jumped on it. Why? Because they explained the symptoms the way I understood them. So a lot of times what you're doing with your content is you're marketing the uveitis, and nobody knows what uveitis is, because you're coming from the level of your expertise and not meeting your audience where they are. So your whatever you're doing with your content, it has to connect with them where they are. This is why when I work with my clients, when they send me something to get my opinion on it, immediately I can identify things that they have in their marketing that won't connect with their clients. Because what I do is I put myself in their audience, their ideal client shoes. So when I'm looking at their content, I'm putting myself in their ideal client shoes. And what I'll do is I'll message them back, and I'll say, would your audience understand this term right here? And a lot of times the answer is no. When they actually think about it, it's like, actually, no, they would not understand that. And so then we change it around in a way that they can understand. And so that's why I say, like, how you articulate things it may not be the same way they articulate things. And that can cause a disconnect in your content. And it can cause people to overlook you because they have no idea what you're talking about. Natasha says you should do. So when you're focused on creating high quality content, you want to make sure you're laying things out in a way that people can follow you and they understand it. I have a friend who she reached out to me years ago, and she was like, can you help me with the title? Like, what do you think about this title for my upcoming event? And I was honest with her, and I said, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And if you have to say the title and then you gotta explain it, that's a sign right there. If you have to explain what this means, it's probably, you can probably improve that title some. And so she ended up going with her thought, her original idea. And it was so funny because I'm like, girl, I'm like, do you know that people pay what you just got from me? I'm like, people pay me for that. And so she decided she wanted to go with what, you know, what she decided. But the funny thing was, I'm like, I don't think she really wanted my opinion anyway. I think she wanted me to agree with what she had already what she had already put together. But do y'all know that that event never really was as successful as she wanted it to be? Because when you're marketing, your marketing has to connect. Your content has to connect, right? Your content is a form of marketing, and it's got to connect with your people. And even when you get ready to speak to a different type of client, then your content has to be on that level as well. So say, like, for example, I talk to my clients about how, y'all, I really believe that the gap for like people who are brand new to business is getting smaller. I won't say it's closing, but I will say it's getting smaller because a lot of people don't want to work with newbies. And even sometimes when I pitch, when I look at like some podcasts will say, well, you need to be making at least 250,000 a year to even apply to be a speaker on this podcast or to be a guest on this podcast. And you may see some marketers say, I work with 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs or 6 figure entrepreneurs. And so a person who's just starting out, they're not going to be at 6, 7, and 8 figures yet, right? And so when you're speaking to a person who is brand new in business, the language is going to be different than if you're speaking to a person who's at 7 figures. So even as you grow your business and you start to pivot with who you're marketing to, then your marketing now has to match the person that you're going to pivot to. And so at any and all times, your content, whatever you're sharing to build your brand, it has to connect with the people who you're marketing to. Okay, so we talked about how to create high quality content, and one way is to tell stories. And even if you're like, well, how do I tell stories? Just practice. Just practice telling stories. Hey, Renee, that's okay. Just get your practice on. Practice telling stories, and you're going to get better and better at it. So practice telling stories to build your brand. And I'm not saying you have to air your dirty laundry, right? That is not that is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is people relate to stories, and you've got to incorporate storytelling into your content. Y'all, you can literally sell. Your stories can literally help sell for you. So work on your storytelling. If it's something that if you feel like, okay, I've been struggling with my content, if you're getting ready to make a point or make a post, think about, okay, well, what kind of story can I tell to help with this? What kind of story can I share that can help people to understand this gap together, understand this, all the big picture of this thing. Carmen says the pieces have to fit, and Shanta says, yes. Thank you, Carmen. Thank you so much. I had a client who she got featured in Mahogany magazine, and before she submitted the story to Mahogany, she sent it to me. And what I normally do with my clients, if they send me something on Word, they already know that I'm getting ready to type over it. So they'll send me something in Word, and I'll just type my ideas over it, and I'll send it back to them. So that's what I did with her. She sent it to me. I typed over it, and I brought it all together for her. And she submitted it, and she got it. Her story got accepted for Mahogany magazine. And so that's what it's really all about. It's about putting the pieces together in a way that people can understand it. And sometimes it's not that you're terrible. It's that sometimes you need another set of eyes on it. I help with branding, I help with messaging, but sometimes I need another set of eyes on my stuff too, right? So sometimes it's just that you're just too close to it. So we talked about telling more stories so that you become memorable. And sometimes if you don't even have a post if you think about a story that you think your audience will connect with, or they will get something out of that story, sometimes you can just make your post can just be you telling a story. If you think about all the stories that you have in your toolbox, that's an instant upgrade for the quality of your content. So the other thing that we talked about was laying your content out in a way that's systematic or formulaic, meaning you're telling people you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago before I went on vacation. I talked about being a thought leader. And so when you're sharing your thoughts in a way that's systematic, people can understand that. And an example of that is if you're talking about Natasha. Natasha helps people improve their gut health. So if Natasha writes a post and says, here are 3 foods you can eat to improve your gut health. Number one, kimchi, right? Is that one, y'all? I'm just making this up as I go along, but I think it is. Or sauerkraut. So we'll say sauerkraut, and let's say she says number 1, sauerkraut, and then she gives a blurb about sauerkraut. Sauerkraut helps with blah 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 blah, right? And then let's say number 2 is eating a variety of different kind of vegetables, and then she could talk about what the variety of different vegetables does. That's what I mean by systematic or formulaic, because now she's articulating her thoughts in a way that's very clear and easy to follow. And that is what's important, you guys, because right now, people are more distracted now than ever. I can barely walk down the stairs and remember what I came down the stairs for. People as a whole, we're distracted, you guys, and we're fighting to stay focused. So if you are posting things, if the post doesn't grab the person in right away, you're going to lose that person. But let me tell you something. Stories keep people glued. Laying your content out in a way that's easy to follow keeps people glued, because they walk away or they scroll past that post like, I just learned something. I just learned something from Natasha. I just learned something from Renee. I learned something new from Carmen today. But if you're not able to really lay it out, then people are going to keep scrolling. So I want you to think about this. And it's very easy for you to do. When you're posting, I want you to think about when you're posting your how-to content or when you're posting your informational content, I want you to think about, okay, how can I lay this out in a way that's clear? And if you need examples, just go scroll through some of my posts and you'll see some examples of exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So here's to creating high quality content so you can attract high quality leads and close some high quality sales, okay? So remember, the people that you're drawing them in on the level of the content that you're creating, because that is how they're determining if they want to work with you or not. They're examining your content, they're looking at what you're putting out there, and that's helping them to make a decision about whether they want to join your program or sign up for your next launch. So if y'all have any questions about anything that I talked about, you already know that you can send me a message. You can message me on Facebook. I respond to Messenger pretty quickly because that's where my clients reach me at. So usually I'm very attentive to my Messenger. So if you have any questions, most of you already know, you can reach out to me on Messenger, or you can email me at info@shantaprince.com. If you need help with content, send me a message. I have a product. It's $17. And in that product is called the Content to Authority System. And I lay out how you can create authority building content. And let me tell you, you get a lot for just $17, and that's on purpose. So if you need help with creating content, just shoot me a quick message and say, hey, can you send me the link to that $17 product so I can get on my content game. But basically with that product, it's going to help you to create consistent content every week. And it's going to help you to plan out what you're going to talk about and plan out when you're going to talk about it. And I also go over 3 different ways to write your social media posts in a way that's elegant, and it helps you to build authority. All right, you guys, thank you so much, Natasha, Renee, Carmen, Ursula. Thank you guys for hanging out. And those of you who are watching, and I know some of y'all watching, but you may be driving or you may be at lunch, you may not be able to engage, but thank you for watching also. And thank you to all of the replay viewers. I have replay viewers who come back every week consistently and watch the replay. I appreciate you so much. Y'all have a wonderful Thursday and a beautiful weekend, and I'll see y'all back here next week at the same place and the same time. Have a great one, and I'll see you again soon.